I've worked with a lot of people that ain't so smart.
I've worked with a lot of individuals that ain't so bright. Jason, I believe the Met provides the people with everything they wanted more. Did he want more? Did he want to be frightened more? Is it to? Is it to this? Is it to that? And I think you never know how I'd never work with him again, even if you paid me a fortune. Jason Statham apparently snapped in a rare behind-the-scenes rant. With his reputation for playing the tough guys and having a no-nonsense attitude, Statham has had run-ins with more than a few co-stars over the years. From egos bigger than his own to actors who could not meet his expectations on set, the action star finally opens up. Here are the top 5 actors Jason Statham hated the most and the surprising reasons why. Steven Seagal. When Jason Statham began calling out names in a now viral interview, fans were expecting some surprises. But when Steven Seagal popped up as the third name on Statham's list of least respected action players, the room did not gasp. It laughed. Not that it was a joke, but that Seagal's decline from martial arts aura to industry joke has been a sort of dark comedy in Hollywood. Statham minced no words. I studied martial arts for years. He made it into a pantomime. He added, the disdain evident. He's a joke. And he struts around as if the second coming of Bruce Lee. Except Bruce Lee did the actual work. The tone wasn't petty. It was biting. There was context behind the feeling. For Statham, an ex-competitive diver turned action hero, the physical discipline isn't merely part of the job. It's who he is. Every punch, every kick, every scowl on screen comes from sweat, sparring, and doing it over and over again. So to watch somebody like Seagal ride on outdated legend and swollen pride galls him, it dishonors the craft. This was not simply a matter of two actors who never collaborated. This was more profound philosophical rift between two factions of action film. On the other hand, there's Statham, whose acting in films such as Crank the Transporter and The Mechanic is based on kinetic realism, no-nonsense fight choreography, and street-smart athleticism. Even in his earlier Guy Ritchie films such as Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels and Snatch, Statham's grounded, gritty presence felt lived in rather than played. Across from him is Seagal, a man whose myth was constructed once upon a time on Mystique, an American who had allegedly perfected Aikido in Japan, a verbal sparsman of a warrior who could take down a dozen henchmen without getting warm. But somewhere along the line, the facade cracked. His battles grew sloppy and implausible. His weight ballooned, his ponytail remained, and his refusal to do low-energy, half-hearted moves as opponents went down like dominoes, made his films unintentional parodies of the genre he used to help define. And it wasn't limited to the films. Seagal's off-screen image didn't hurt either. He's built a reputation for overplaying or flat out, making up his credentials over the years. From allegations of CIA intervention to outlandish statements regarding his spiritual heritage, he once declared himself a reincarnated 17th century Tibetan Lama. He stood in sheriff uniforms and performed vigilante cop for reality TV. The entire persona had become grotesquely self-serious. To someone like Statham, who established his career brick by brick, the Seagal routine would have been akin to a slap in the face. Not only to him, but to every fight choreographer, martial artist, and stuntman who puts their body on the line for reality. It's not about being cool. It's about respect for the craft, for the discipline, for the audience. Statham once remarked in a different interview that ethos is a direct contradiction to the fantasy world Seagal appears to reside in. Genre's fans have caught the change, too. Where Seagal was once named alongside Jean-Claude Van Damme and Chuck Norris, he now shows up more on memes than in deep discussion about action legends. On the other hand, Statham has climbed the ranks the hard way, earning roles in blockbuster franchises such as Fast and Furious, The Expendables, and The Meg, not only for his charm, but for his intense physical training and fight credibility. Even when he's playing over-the-top characters, there's a believable edge. You think Statham could win that fight, because in many ways he already does. And so, when Statham delivered that punch verbally naturally, it didn't taste like celebrity news. It tasted like a long overdue industry conscience, a calling out of the empty posturing that had too frequently been masquerading as action film gravitas. It wasn't about Siegel the individual. It was on Seagal, the icon of ego-overwhelming talent and performance being performance only in the theater, not the physical sense. In a genre where image has always been currency, Statham has bet his worth on something more rare, authenticity. And calling out Steven Seagal was not a trivial assault. It was a line in the sand, one by a man who is still getting the job done and not afraid to call out others who gave up long ago. Mark Wahlberg. Following already scorching string of call-outs, Jason Statham reserved the most gobsmacking bombshell for last. With a last gasp of breath and a careless snap of the wrist, as if he were merely checking off the last item on a hit list, he let out a name that shattered the internet. Mark Wahlberg. As opposed to his other selections, this one was different. The two weren't merely throwing names around in the same profession. They'd actually collaborated. In The Italian Job in 2003, Statham and Wahlberg co-starred in a sleek ensemble remake that was full of fast cars, suits, and 2000 swagger. Although they didn't have much screen time together, they were both part of the crew. It was one of those movies that people still go back to and enjoy, and one that fueled the success of each actor's growing popularity at the time. So for many fans, this was the last place they expected drama. But drama, it turns out, had been brewing for years. According to Statham, there were warning signs even back then. He's the kind of bloke who walks into a room and makes everything about him, he said, not with bitterness, but with that calm, surgical disdain he's perfected, always cracking jokes, keeping the crew in wait while he makes promo calls for his burger place or whatever. The insult was not only bad manners. For Statham, Wahlberg stood for something deeper and more infuriating. The facade of authenticity. He plays this Boston tough guy thing like he's still in The Departed, but then you see him flying private to give a speech at a business conference for his supplements company. Spare me the working class routine. It was not only the persona that bothered him. It was the act of humility. In Statham's view, Wahlberg appeared to don his working class origins as a costume. And in a company rife with self-branding and reinvention, that hit a nerve. For Statham, whose own success story from street markets and competitive diving to stardom in films was one of grit and application, faking being just one of the lads while creating a multi-million-dollar lifestyle empire felt inauthentic. Adding to the tension was the manner in which Wahlberg, infamous for his dogged hustle, appeared to take every set and turn it into an individual marketing platform. Statham remembered once that filming had to be halted as Wahlberg dealt with a call pertaining to his restaurant chain Wabbers. The other time, it was his line of nutraceuticals. We're on the shot. He's trying to sell protein powder. Statham joked, "It's like, are you in the movie business or do you want to build an empire? Do one." Some actors love being brand mogul. The Rock, being a case in point, has no shame talking about his business ambitions. Statham appeared to draw the line when the brand is in the way of the work. To him, the work is about concentration, discipline, and arriving for the team. Anything less, and the respect begins to dissipate. But whatever was possibly the last straw was something more insidious. Wahlberg's compulsion to take over the room. Statham, who is understated and intensely professional, seemingly found Wahlberg's endless joking and seeking for attention tiresome. It's as if he can't remain seated unless he's the most boisterous person in the room. That's acceptable at a pub, not on the set of a movie. The upshot was a gradual, silent erosion of any goodwill between them. They have not appeared together since The Italian Job, and insiders say there have been several instances where both actors were in consideration for ensemble casts, but neither was interested when the other was committed. The response to Statham's remarks was seismic. Social media erupted with fans re-watching their screen chemistry on The Italian Job, searching for hints of tension. Some came to the defense of Wahlberg, referencing his entrepreneurialism and work ethic. Others applauded Statham for speaking out against what they perceived to be Hollywood hypocrisy. At the dawn of celebrity branding, Wahlberg has emerged as a figurehead of the grind set ethos. 4 a.m. gym sessions, strict regimens, motivational videos, and around-the-clock hype. To many, he's inspiring. To everyone else, he's draining. But to Jason Statham, one thing was as plain as day. None of the box office draw or protein shakes can substitute for integrity. I don't care if you own 10 companies. If you can't get to work on set, treat the crew right, and get the job done like the rest of us, then I don't want to work with you. In a town where silence is sometimes better than truth, Statham's last name drop wasn't merely a personal epiphany. It was an unguarded bit of candor, one that spoke to everyone's memory that in an industry founded upon illusion, there are still those who think about what's real. Shia LaBeouf, it's strange that Statham and LaBeouf had never shared the screen before. No red carpet shots, no behind-the-scenes encounters, no crossover franchises. In reality, the prospect of these two such disparate actors, Statham with his granite-like intensity and raw physicality, LaBeouf with his offbeat method shenanigans and indie-flavored bedlam, appearing together on screen seemed like cinematic oil and water. And yet, as Statham described, their conflict never even came to be. And even so, it made an impact. "We were negotiating for a project a couple of years ago," Statham replied matter-of-factly. Studio was elated. I wasn't. I told them he wasn't suitable. He messaged me. Let's just say it wasn't very professional. Statham did not describe what LaBeouf had messaged him, but his cold stare spoke volumes. This was no amicable difference of opinion regarding casting. This was personal. And if you're aware of LaBeouf's off-screen reputation, the picture becomes clear. For years, Shia LaBeouf has balanced on a razor's edge between tortured brilliance and Hollywood outcast. Having risen to stardom as a Disney Channel darling and franchise leading man in Transformers, LaBeouf transitioned into increasingly darker and more intense performances. Fury, Honey Boy, and the Peanut Butter Falcon saw him prove his range and willingness to take a beating for a role. But the off-screen anecdotes were more difficult to overlook. There were accounts of fistfights on the set, hot arguments with directors, and a series of ominous incidents involving drunken arrests and claims of abuse. "Sometimes people want to be tortured geniuses," Statham said tartly. "I just want to get the job done without some tantrum thrower in their trailer." It was a quintessential Statham line, blunt, earthy, and said with the fatigued cadence of a man who's been around, and ended up exactly explaining why he couldn't abide the prospect of working with LaBeouf. While Jason Statham has a reputation for being highly professional, coming early, performing his own stunts, adhering to script, LaBeouf is by all accounts chaos personified.